Welcome to episode 517 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm actually Scott Meyers, screenwriter and blogger at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I am interviewing writer-director Todd Bogin. He just did a cool indie thriller film called Hidden Exposure. He's got a great story. He started working in the business for an ad agency at the very, very bottom as a production assistant, just getting coffee, doing very basic stuff. But he worked his way up and started doing other things on the commercials like producing and editing. This got him on set so he could really learn how film production worked. We talk about this background at the agency, how that led to some of his short films, and now to his first feature film, Hidden Exposure, starring Rumer Willis and Richard Kind. So stay tuned for that interview. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leave me a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking or sharing it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Any websites or links that I mention in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcast, and then just look for episode number 517. So now let's get into the main segment. Today I am interviewing screenwriter and director Todd Bogin. Here is the interview. Welcome, Todd, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today.
Hey, thank you for having me. I love the podcast. So,
Hey, well, thank you. So to start out, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up and how did you get interested in the entertainment business?
yeah, for sure. I was born in Chicago. I grew up in the western suburbs, and moved to New York. Essentially, the second I became an adult. I didn't go to film school, but I started as a production assistant. So I essentially I started in radio and then moved over to film and TV, mostly working for agency work, commercials, ads, getting coffee, all that stuff. And that was about 12 years ago. And then just slowly learned how to produce, learned how to edit, learned how to write, learned how to direct. And I still do agency work a lot too. And then started writing and producing my own shorts during that time, using my skill set from that.
So a couple questions. So why New York City? Why, being from Chicago, why did you go to New York? Why didn't you go to LA?
When I went to New York, I always wanted to be a filmmaker in high school. That's all I dreamed about and everything like that. But I actually never thought I would be a filmmaker or pursue it. So there's a couple years where it wasn't even on my mind. And I have a lot of family in New York. So it was a lot of just like being around family and getting to explore New York City. Ironically, is kind of what led to being a filmmaker in many ways. Who knows, if I could go back, it probably would have been LA. I mean, the weather's a lot nicer. So.
Yeah, no kidding. So just a quick question sort of about that agency work. Number one, do you have some tips for people if they want to get into the agency work as a writer, director, or even just most likely a PA kind of starting out? Do you have some tips for people that maybe want to start out in agency work? And really the bigger question of that is, would you recommend this as to someone that's a writer, maybe a writer director that wants, fresh out of college? Is this a good path to kind of learn your craft and move up?
Absolutely. I 100% recommend it. It's a great way to learn your craft because you're writing for a client, essentially. You're writing for a product. You're writing for something that's given to you. And when you're making film, you're writing for an audience. It also teaches you on a basic form, you're on set for a day or two. You're not on set for 30 days or whatever, but it's teaching you how sets work. It's teaching you how pre-production works. It's teaching you how post-production works. And you have to be completely organized because you're working with a lot of money, a lot of big businesses, and a lot of everything is pinpointed. You can't just improvise the McDonald's ads on set, right? So it teaches you fundamentals, and I feel like it teaches you discipline in production and creativity. And for writing, yeah, because I think you're learning how each word matters. So when you're writing copy for, and not that I've been a copywriter really, but when you're writing copy for an ad, you're learning about how every single use of word and language and even your punctuation is very important. And this works with screenplays. And then in terms of like your filming and stuff, if you're directing, you're doing that. It's like how in 30 seconds do I tell a story? So I fully recommend it. The other thing is it's a good source of income while you're struggling to get other stuff made, and you're meeting other people who are likewise. To break in, I essentially started because I knew a producer, so I asked if I can PA on set. People get in multiple ways. Obviously, you can just apply. I mean, people going in through like the creative round, you can just write stuff and send your stuff and apply that way. People to come in and be a writer for them, come in and be a producer, post producer. For me, I actually edit a lot. So that was a good way in for me once I didn't want to produce on set all the time because I wanted to step back and be able to concentrate on my feature films. So I actually have edited a lot too. So my other advice is learn a skill set that maybe not everyone is going for with agency work. Editing for agency is really great because you can work from home a lot and you get booked out and it's good day rate and stuff. Producing is great too. It's a lot of work as well. But yeah, that's my advice. And I actually think it gives you such great fundamentals for production that although feature film sets are different, the stuff relates.
Gotcha. So maybe you can just speak very quickly just on the moving up in an agency. It sounds like you started out as a PA. That's kind of the entry level job, getting coffee and moving up. At some point during this first year or two, as you're doing sort of the low level stuff, did you start to get an idea, hey, maybe I could direct or maybe I could produce? And then how do you actually start to let people know in an appropriate manner, hey, you know, I'm the PA getting coffee. Here's my feature film script. How do you sort of navigate this in sort of an appropriate way so you're not kind of annoying or weird to the people that you're trying to get a job from?
Well, I'll give you the experience from probably being weird to people. So, I mean, I knew I wanted to direct when I was 14 years old, and I had a black lab, and I cut holes in a white T-shirt and pretended he was a cow loose in the town, you know. So I mean, so for me, that was always in my mind when I started. When I was like, I'm gonna go get coffee, and then silently I say to my producer, you know, the guy who hired me, I'm like, I'm gonna get coffee. Thanks for hiring me. And then in the back of my mind, and look at everything the director does, so I can one day do myself. The idea is be respectful, be the best PA there is, right? It's like I'm under the belief where if your job is to sweep the floor, make it the cleanest floor you can possibly do, right? And I think with this, it like helps you move up because people are like, this PA is like not giving me attitude and he's taking it serious. I feel like I can trust him to move on up. In terms of letting everyone know about directing and how to go about that, I kind of like followed directors around on set, and I definitely no one ever yelled at me, but looking back, I definitely like have some cringe moments where I crossed a couple lines because I was asking directors why they were using a certain lens on like a diamond commercial, and I don't think they even fully knew, but I just kind of asked, and I think I was a little too upfront at points. But I never got fired, so that's good. And then in terms of the writing stuff, I got to be real with you. Like a lot of people did not take me serious for a long time, like not in a bad way. I think they just go, everyone has a screenplay. So my advice on that is actually a little bit different. My advice on that is make that short film with your friends you're meeting from there. And if you can, borrow the equipment from there and versus expect someone else to make it for you from that world. So that's my advice with that. But you gotta be upfront and let everyone know what your goal is. I was always very vocal. Like my goal is to direct, my goal is to produce, you know, and I took a lot of effort in learning how production works, which helps you produce your shorts that can get you to directing features.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's start to talk about your directing features and sort of moving in that direction. So at what point you're working for the agency at this point? So you're making a living, you're doing these editing gigs and production gigs. At what point do you start writing your own features or writing your own shorts and going out and producing them?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say I was still PAing when I was writing my shorts. Maybe let's say my first job as a PA was 2012, 13. I think my first short was made around then. But it's happening while it's going on. I mean, I'm writing constantly. I was writing, you know, you have downtime in an office, you just wrap the job and you have a slow day or whatever. And I'm writing in the office, you know. It's too late now. I've switched jobs, so they can't find me. But I'm like, you know, I'm FDX open on the thing writing there. So it has to. I'm a big believer. You have to continuously do it. Like you go when home at night after 16-hour days on set, you have to put in an hour at least. So it has to happen constantly. I don't think it's like in 5 years from now I'm gonna start doing this. It's like because also it's like writing takes a long time to learn. My first few shorts were terrible. Some people were like, "Oh, this is cute. You're gonna have to do it on your own," because my shorts were not well written at the time, and I had to take it the hard way. I had to take the punch on the chin, but at least like it taught me how to like better write it. And there's many people out there, if you read some letterbox reviews, that think I still don't know what I'm doing, but you know, yeah. So I just believe it's in tandem. I'm like, I think you have to continuously working on it. And as hard as it is, because as hard it is, even when I moved up to being a producer and then being an editor as well. It's like there's a lot of time out of your day, and it's a lot of mental brain power, but you have downtime, you're waiting for notes at times, you're waiting for this call to come in, and there's times to do that. So it's, continuous.
So let's dig into your latest feature film, Hidden Exposure. Maybe to start out, you can kind of give us a quick pitch or log line. What is this new film all about?
Yeah, for sure. It is a thriller, a drama thriller, essentially about a woman who is left by her partner who he was living off her, and he leaves her for someone else he's living off of, and the woman who is left needs to tell him something, and she goes to tell him something and ends up meeting his new girlfriend, and they actually connect. And then I would like to say all hell breaks loose from there.
Gotcha.
So it's like your classic thriller. One thing that I went for with this movie was I tried to have the lead character, Sabina, played by the wonderful Liana Liberato. I tried to have her follow the circle of abuse, the cycle of abuse, essentially. So like where she starts and where she ends is like following this cycle in a sense. And I think we did a decent job, and I'm pretty proud of it. And yeah, it was first feature. So
gotcha. So where did this idea come from? What was sort of the genesis of this idea?
Yeah. So like I said, I've done a bunch of shorts. Around 2019, I had a short come out that was like about this woman's violin being stolen. It was all about like identity and what happens when your identity is taken from you, and what happens when you were able to confront that. And I was on the festival tour with that, and I was like walking around, and the idea of me was like, what if this character was able to revenge what happened to her in a violent way, like movies do. But then when she got there, she had no idea how to actually do that. And I wanted to take like the damage from someone's identity being lost, someone being abused, and follow them through that to show like each of their actions are essentially because of that, and the mental distortion from that. So that was really the genesis. Now, I listened to all your podcasts, and a lot of the interviewers always have like they have these brilliant ways of approaching the screenplay. They outline, they note card, they this. This was probably the sixth feature I wrote, and all the first five of them were not great. This was the first one that I really was like, I'm going to see this through. I had some people who were interested in making a feature with me based on some shorts. And so I outlined it a little bit, but I went through like 72 drafts. And as each draft went on, the story got more and more clear to me, honestly. So it was like really like a movie I wrote where I had this idea. I knew my theme and I knew what I wanted to discuss, but the plot and everything kind of revealed itself as I like explored whatever mental stuff was going on in my brain that came out on this.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the collaboration. On IMDb, there's two other writers
Yes.
that are credited. So maybe you can talk through that. How did this collaboration work? What did you guys do? What were their parts? And maybe you can just sort of talk through what the collaboration actually looked like.
Yeah, no problem. So for those, for Molly Jeffers and Frederick J.A. Richter, so essentially, I started writing the script April of 2019, and they came in early 21, maybe. Like we were definitely like pandemic level. And so I was about 60, 70 drafts into the script. We started setting the script out to some actors, and I was getting great responses. I had like 300 pages of storyboards and camera creatives and all this stuff ready to go. And essentially the response I was getting from a couple actors was this script is cool, the story is cool, but you're missing like the tendons, you're missing the meat and bones of some specific scenes. And I don't come from I'm a writer who had to write to learn how to. I'm a director who wrote to direct. And this is part of my writing process and my journey to learn how to write. So essentially, I had to like be honest with myself, and I was like, do I want to have my ego give me an okay screenplay, or do I want to like let go of my ego and like bring in some writers who can add some meat to this, add some A1 sauce or something, So that's what happened essentially. So with O'Malley, I had extensive notes, and he came in and beefed up some stuff, just like just like some color to the scenes, added a scene or two, but like mostly like just some depth to the character and background, and helped me with my dialogue, which I feel like now I understand a lot better. At the time I was still learning. And then Frederick, who is one of my closest friends, and I'm co-writing one of my next features with, we're essentially done with it. he's just like he's a pro. He's a master's from AFI in screenwriting. He works on HBO shows, and he just came in and like made it a pro script. The difference is a scene where two characters in a room talking about something, and then he adds like they're in the room, and then there's something going on with the couch next to them. That's just like adding like little depth and things like that to a story in a scene. One of the scenes is the Rumor and Richard Kind scene towards the end of the film. There's just some really beautiful dialogue. And I had that scene and it was very basic and I didn't know what I was saying. And he came in and just like made it this very touching, beautiful scene that I always get people talking about. And it's actually the scene that got Richard to attach. So that was my process. It wasn't a sitting in the same room. It was more like, this is the notes we need. And as on my next second script I wrote with Frederick called Heavy Ashes that we're hopefully going into production next year. That was kind of similar. I wrote a couple passes myself, and then him and I are sending the FDX back and forth over email, essentially.
Gotcha. How did you meet these two? You mentioned Frederick is one of your best friends. So maybe you can talk. I know there's going to be screenwriters listening to this thinking, well, gee, how do I get hired for those gigs, or how do I network with a director that's making movies? So how did you meet these two fellas?
So Amali was through a mutual friend who had worked with him and said he was like a guy who can come in and do like the meat and potatoes and like do the dirty work and then hand it off. I wanted to hand it off to a polisher at the end. So that's how I met him. It was really simple. It still is a very nice guy and was just very great to work with. And Frederick, I met through a mutual friend as well, like around 2019, 2020, who we had both worked with the same person on multiple jobs. And they essentially were just like, I think you would get along with this guy. You guys should know each other. It was literally just one of those things. And we got along, and I've read a bunch of his own screenplays that are just like, I think really brilliant. And so I asked him to do it, and he gave me 2 weeks on Left with Only Rain, Hidden Exposure, Left with Only Rain. They changed the name. So, so that was really it. And I'm always looking for other co-writers and stuff. Like that's my dream is like I have learning how to have a couple co-writers where I can just continuously write with, or almost step back from writing in many ways. But yeah, that's really it. I don't know like any if there's like, I'm sure like hitting people up and reaching out helps. One thing I do as a director, and your website has been great for this with screenplay awards and like unproduced scripts and stuff. I'll reach out to writers on those. I reached out to a bunch of writers on like under $1 million unproduced stuff on Go to Coverfly. I as a director have actually reached out to writers and have built relationships through some writers whose scripts I've read, and possibly with some writers who are looking for directors to do their scripts. The opposite might work for them, reaching out to directors who are doing like, indie films that they can at least pitch their script with, where they don't have to necessarily go through like CAA or who's going to block them. So that's just some advice I can give.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's excellent to hear. That's fascinating. So let's talk about your writing, how your writing process and how you do it. When do you typically write and where do you typically write? Are you a morning person, late person? Do you have a home office or do you write things? You go to Starbucks? Maybe just talk about what your writing process looks like, especially as it relates to something like Hidden Exposure. As you're doing these, the first draft through that draft number 60, what does your day typically look like?
Yeah, great question. I'm a morning person. I have a cat who wakes me up at 5 a.m. every day. And I'm a runner too. So usually, I live in Manhattan. I'm in LA now, but I live in Manhattan. So like, I'll usually get up at like 5:30. I'll go for a jog in Central Park or wherever. And I'll come back, but I'm back by like 6:37. And, it starts with a piping hot pot of coffee from usually Zabar's blend. I don't know if they hear this and want to give me some free one, and then I'm writing morning, so like I'm like 7 a.m. till like 10:30, 11 is like my golden time. Like I can just like zone out, put on some tunes, like put on some headphones, and I'm writing from home mostly. I have a little like setup at home. I mean, I live in New York, so like a home office is more like a little corner and against the wall, So that's what I'm doing when I'm writing. And then I always have like I'll always put it aside. I'll go for a walk, do some other work. A lot of times after that, I'll go to the creatives. So I'm obsessed with InDesign, Adobe InDesign and Pinterest. So I'll go on Pinterest if I'm writing a scene, let's say, like Left with Only Rain, for instance, Hidden Exposure, Left with Only Rain. If I'm writing the scene where she's on the train heading upstate, I'm going on Pinterest and I'm looking at like specifically shot stuff from there. It's weird looking trains, ways someone would rest their head against a window, shot deck where you're looking at scenes that were shot with that. How does it look on a wide lens? How does it look on a close lens? And I'll spend hours doing that, not writing actually. So I work through the visual mostly. And then I come back later in the day around like 4 to 7, and then sometimes weirdly at like 9 or 10 at night I'll have an urge. But the morning is my time. And it's after I run. And my running is like I run in the morning because I have anxiety. I don't drink, I don't have any vices really. So it's like my running is like my way of just forming my thoughts, getting calm with myself, kind of meditating. And usually when I'm coming back from my run, I'm like, all my ideas are there. So yeah.
So how much time do you spend in Final Draft cranking out pages versus outlining? It sounds like you're more of the get into Final Draft and do a bunch of rewrites as opposed to plotting it all, spending tons and tons of time plotting it all out. But maybe you can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. So up until essentially the last year, I'm essentially 95% Final Draft, plotting it out, rewriting, revision mode. Why did I do that? Why didn't I spend the time outlining it, walking around like, oh, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. So that's mostly what I've been doing. The past year, as I've been working on other scripts with really talented writers, I've been stepping back through the outlining. So I have another script that I'm working on now that's probably a year away from being done that I haven't touched Final Draft on, and I have like 70-page outline on, and that I'm going into Final Draft soon. But for the most part, I'm Final Drafts open. I'm doing it. I'm working through the scenes that way. Then, I'm not saying that's the way to do it because I understand that that's not the way they teach you to do it.
Yeah. So it's amazing to me, though, just doing this podcast and having people come on. There's a lot less consensus on this than I think is sort of the conventional wisdom as you do the index cards and you spend a lot of time outlining. But you'd be surprised. There's a number of writers that have come on. I mean, I don't know if it's 50-50, but a good number of writers come on and have the same experience. I just find that for myself and for someone like yourself, it's a simple equation. I mean, do you want to do the work on the front end or the back end? You don't seem to mind doing all those 60 versions of the draft. For some reason, I have a hard time like understanding the full script and going back into it. So if I get sort of bogged down in a draft that needs massive rewrites, it feels very difficult, as opposed to when I have the outline, I can sort of see the script. And I'm actually doing a rewrite now. I'll even go back and I'll go back to the cards and I'll paste them out and sort of see it just so I can see the script and start to see it on more the macro level. But I don't really know if there's a right answer or conventional wisdom really holds true. You're going to end up spending a lot of time on a screenplay, whether it's doing the outline or whether it's doing the rewrite.
Yeah, I agree with you, and good luck on the rewriting and stuff too, because I know that can be scary. I agree with you. It's like, what do you want better? I feel like there's a form of chaos to the version I've done where you're going through 60 drafts and you all is lost, the dark of the night of the screenplay. And I'm like, why am I doing this? And there's something about it though that makes me feel like it's what keeps me writing, because I'm like, I challenge myself. I'm like, I have to prove to myself that this is a good screenplay and I got to do it. Versus, I think your way is the much better way, if I could say it. And I'm working on getting there just because of that aspect of it. I feel like it's a more organized, calmer, smooth ride.
Yeah.
But there's something about the chaos that's also kind of fun.
Yeah, exactly. The creativity and not feeling like you're tied down and that sort of stuff. Yeah. No,
yeah, because it does always change. But I mean, I know people who will spend. I have a friend I was just had dinner with, who's a brilliant writer. He's been on Blacklist a bunch, and he showed me his outline for a script he's working on. And the depth of this outline, I could not do that. I would get lost and not like the writing of it, but it was just brilliant. I was just like, man, this guy has thought out every little aspect before he's even opened up the Final Draft thing. So it's like, it's amazing. Well, but my thing is like, I really believe in the visual. I mean, that's me. So I really will, like, I'll write a quick draft or halfway through, and I'll go to InDesign, or I'll go on Pinterest and start copy pasting on InDesign, and I'll start building out the characters like style and color swatches, and create food that they're eating. I'll create meals for them, or like playlists for each character, and then I'll go back to the script as well. I mean, I don't know if that helps, but it's helped me sometimes.
Yeah. And that's almost a form of outlining. You're doing those sort of character descriptions in sort of just a modern digital way.
Totally, totally.
So yeah. So
Yeah.
okay, so let's talk about your development process as you're doing
Mhm.
these 60 drafts. Who are the people you're getting notes from? Do you have some trusted writer friends, actor friends, producer friends? Just walk us through that a little bit. How do you go through this development process?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I have very trusted friends. Frederick is one of them. My wife is one of them. I met her while I was writing Love with Only Rain, Hidden Exposure. And if you read that script, I'm very lucky that she didn't leave me after reading it. Um, um, I have some actor friends as well, that I send it to. I love getting the actor's response just to see like if it's an actor script, and I always am trying to write for the actor in many ways to attract them. You're also trying to
Mhm.
write for the producer. Yeah, so I have a good like 4, 5, 6 people. I try not to send them every draft. Like I try to like okay, the first draft I'm gonna send to 1 or 2 people who I know are always gonna be friends with me because I might need them later on and they'll read the
Mhm.
second one. But there's a couple friends who are like I get one time with this script with them.
Yeah.
So I have my go-to. Barbie Lung, the cinematographer of Hidden Exposure, who's also the cinematographer of my next film. She always gives me a great pass. And I also utilize like blind reading. So I've paid for a lot of coverage on Fiverr, believe it or not.
Hmm.
Just people I don't know. I just want someone who doesn't know me to give me like an honest opinion. Some other websites too I've paid for, but that one I'm usually going for because you can directly write with them and because a lot of the other ones I've noticed they're very sometimes it feels copy and pasted.
Hmm.
But I've done Fiverr a lot as well too. And then when I get towards the end is when I start giving it to people who are not necessarily like in the film industry. My brother's a lawyer, and he gave me the last round of notes on Love with Only Rain. He gave some of the best notes I got. He gave us a note that we added 1 or 2 things, and many people have commented on that scene.
Hmm.
I'm just like, I don't, so yeah, that's
Okay.
spread it out. Like,
Mhm.
don't bother your friends too much.
Yeah.
So.
Certainly, there's no friend that's good enough to read 60 drafts of something.
No,
Even
that
your
a lot
wife,
of that, yeah,
even your wife
exactly.
wouldn't.
I spent a lot of money on Fiverr on
Getting a little
Hidden
tweaks.
Exposure Love with Only Rain. I'll say that. That was, you
Gotcha.
know.
How do you approach screenplay structure? There's
Mhm.
sort of the Blake Snyder, Sid Field. They have your act breaks and your midpoints and your inciting incidents and that sort of stuff. What is your approach? And I'm curious too, especially as someone who doesn't outline, as someone who does a lot of outlining. And I find this: the people that are into more outlining generally gravitate more towards these sort of template structures that we see. But what's your approach to screenplay structure?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I'm a fan of the template. I originally was like, oh, whatever, it doesn't matter. But for me, I need that structure. The Sid Field, Save the Cat also is like I've read all that stuff and it helps. Like the beats, I'll do like a beat calculator and
Mhm.
I'll do all that stuff. In my opinion, it's like I need that structure. It's like writing a song. You need the A, the B, and the A, B, and then the C, then the A, and then and I feel that with the screenplay for me at least. I,
Mhm.
I wish I was at a level where I can just it doesn't matter. I can do a six structure, but I'm working out of 3 act essentially with sometimes with an extended fourth, a little added fourth at the end.
Mhm.
With like Heavy Ashes definitely has a small fourth act, and so does another one I'm working on that I actually didn't write. That I'm working on directing next year. Yeah, I'm in that basic 3 act structure. I'm if it's like a 90-page screenplay, I'm trying to like incite an incident within 10. I'm by page 20, 25, we're getting into our second act. I'm trying to just stick to that.
Gotcha,
So
gotcha. Okay, so once you had a draft that you liked, what were those next steps to actually going out and starting raising the money and actually getting this thing into production?
it's a little different with the next stuff just because I have a little bit more of a team around me, which is great. Love the Rain, Hidden Exposure. I had nothing around me.
Mhm.
So the one thing I did have was I had a bunch of shorts, and one of my shorts, I got to do some festivals, and I met some people who were interested in giving me not that much money, but a little bit of money for a feature. My step was essentially I took that, built the deck, and you reach out to agents essentially on IMDb Pro and trying to get actors to read it and get attached. It was really that. I know it sounds like that's like doesn't happen, but I mean, you reach out and ask if they would read it, and you got a couple people to bite.
Mhm. Like
So that was
Rumor
my
Willis, you're saying like Rumor Willis, it was just a cold email to her agent or
yeah.
manager, and then they just sent him the script and you cut a deal.
Yeah, and she was the first person to attach to Left with Only Rain and Exposure. If she didn't attach that, I don't know if this movie would have ever been made.
Hmm.
So my pitch was essentially to her was just like, I mean, I didn't. She related to it, thank God. But I felt that that character was suited for her in a sense. And I had a friend who suggested her. He had kind of known her agent a little bit, and he was like, she would fit this. One of my friends who read the script. um,
Hmm.
yeah, and that was essentially, and so I was able to write saying, hey, I was, told that this might be good for her. And so then when that happened, then where you're going from there is, at least from the indie world where you don't have too much money. I mean, this movie was like, I'm not allowed to say the budget, but it was very far away from a million, put it that way. It was
Hmm.
not anywhere near hitting a million. When that happens, then you have we had Innovative, you have them interested in helping you cast that. So then you're now, I'm now on a phone call with Richard Kind, Liana's reading the script, Liana Liberato. And essentially all that was just because one actor was like, this is decent. So yeah, that was what that happened. And then what we were able to do because of that, I was able to go to people who told me that they'd be interested in financing the first film if I was able to do that, and we were able to get a bunch of investors involved and put a little bit of money in.
Hmm.
Um, and then once that was the case, and now things should be done a little bit differently as I move forward in my career, and they are. But then once that was the case, I was able to pitch sales agents. One after we were done filming, actually, and then that's how we were able to get the Coven to help sell the movie.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
yeah,
So now, just as you're going through this process, there's no, you mentioned Richard Kind as well. These are not actors that you had a prior relationship or anything like
no,
that. It was, and none of your other producers or anything. They are cold. Did you hire a casting director to make some of those initial submissions?
no, we had no casting director.
Hmm.
So some of the other producers knew the agent. I think they might have known Richard a little bit, but the other actors were all like fresh. But yeah, I never met Richard in my life. Ironically, he only lives a couple blocks from me in New York. I didn't know that until after we shot. So
And you mentioned the sales agent. You got
yeah,
a sales agent on. So this is after you're through production, but before you're actually completed the film. Principal
yes,
photography is done, but so I'm on like these Facebook forums in distribution
yeah,
stuff, and I constantly see people asking, well, how do you find a good sales agent? So I pose that question to you. I mean, as someone who's been in, indie film and things, I mean, once your film is completed, you start to get emails from people that are like on IMDb, but I don't know if these are necessarily the people you want to deal with. How
yeah.
do you actually find a trustworthy sales agent that's going to be bring meaningful value to this project?
So I've prefaced this by saying that as go forward in this, I realized that I literally won the jackpot with my sales agent. So a lot of this is like blind luck, as straight up blind luck. Because I hear horror stories about from some people like you. I'm sure you do too. I've been
Mm-hmm.
on some of those same forums, and you hear this. We all know,
Yeah.
Um, no, not naming names, but we all know. So essentially, what I had to do is I had to go on and sell the film, and I didn't know how to. I've never sold the film before. I've never done a feature before. So I essentially I edit. So I edit a lot. I edit for So I edited my own little trailer. I built a little website around the movie. Built like the colors in our movie are very important. So I built like a color theory booklet. I built like whatever, a stills booklet where it was like 50 pages of just like the movie in stills because you don't know how many people are gonna watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I ended up just reaching out to a bunch of sales agents that I was researching. What I would do is I would go on IMDb Pro. I'd go to like big festivals or whatever, and I would see a movie that maybe was similar, or a movie that like Liana was also in, or something like that, and I would see who sold it, and I would reach out to their agents and stuff. So that was essentially what I started doing, and we got a few decent offers from some really nice companies, and we got turned down too.
Mm-hmm.
That's gonna happen. Um, and I don't hold anything against that because it's like that's part of the game. Um, when we got the Coven, I was very excited because although Left Alone Rain is not a horror film, I watched what they did Business Sense with Terrifier 2, which made in millions and millions of dollars on a very low budget all over the world. They took like this very distinctive horror film and was able to sell that. And I knew that they were very new. It was run by two women, and I listened to a couple podcasts with them,
Hmm.
and they just sounded so nice and so smart, and so I wrote them. I wrote them a pitch that was just like straight up business. It wasn't about my passion towards the film because my passion's in the film. I think you just have to watch it and know. But it was about the business aspect of the movie, and I was trying to let them know that I would work with them from the business end to make them the most money and make us the most money.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and that's what happened. I met with them and we got along super well. So that was how I got my sales agents. Honestly, I met them on IMDb Pro essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Um, now I'm very good friends with them and would love to work with them as much as possible. And they've been fantastic and taught me a lot. And now I do have that I won't chat about, but I have also heard a lot of stories from other friends where it's like, you get the sales agent, they do the trailer, they do the poster, you pay them a lot of money, and then it just goes up somewhere and you don't see anything. So I don't know. My biggest thing is like ask questions to talk to people who've worked with them before. I think people are really afraid of doing that in this industry for some reason. But get references, and you don't necessarily have to ask them. Just see who they put out and reach out to those directors, reach out to those producers, and see how it was working with them.
Yeah. So then that's excellent advice. And I'm sure people will be, you're giving them such a good recommendation. People will be looking them up through your film.
They should.
You mentioned that you'd been to a bunch of festivals with your shorts. Did you do any festivals with this feature?
Yeah. So there was with our sales process and with some stuff in our movie, we did not really do a festival run because we were supposed to, and there was stuff that I probably shouldn't get into on the call in terms of like the people who were supposed to do that didn't really know how it worked out. So we had to maneuver a lot of stuff. We were at Berlinale EFM in February though, and that's where the movie sold. We were there because of the Coven. We didn't really do a festival run though, and we didn't even really almost attempt to. We sold to the Coven before we even got to that point, which was great. But by the time we sold with them, it was like a weird timing with festivals. So yeah, we were at Berlinale EFM this year. I went out there, met everyone. It was great. And that's where we sold, USA and Canada. And yeah, so not a full one. That is what my next films are. I'm very determined to do a big festival run.
Gotcha. Yeah. So how can people see Hidden Exposure? What's the release schedule going to be like?
Cool. Yeah. It's right now exclusive in the US, Canada on Tubi. They bought off exclusive rights for a little bit. They can email me and I can give them a 4K screen or two if they want, a private one. They can, if they're in Germany, it's available. Also, we're being released in Germany soon, I think theatrical, and also some stuff coming through with other aspects of other parts of Europe and international will be coming out over the next few months. So right now, US, Canada.
Gotcha. And I just like to wrap up the interviews by asking the guests, is there anything you've seen recently that you can recommend to our mostly screenwriting audience? Anything on Hulu, Netflix, HBO that you think is just really, really great and screenwriters could get a lot out of?
Yeah, I think it's coming to HBO or Hulu soon. I just saw it in the movie theater, and I honestly think I haven't read the screenplay, but just watching the movie, I thought Anatomy of the Fall, the screenwriting and the dialogue and how the story unfolded just blew me away. Like I thought it was like one of the best screenplays I've seen on screen in so long, and I can't stop thinking about that movie and going everywhere online to see the breakdowns of the scripts. There is a script online, but it's mostly in French, and I don't know French, unfortunately. I just think that movie from this year was just beautiful and brilliant.
Yeah, perfect. Writing. That's a great recommendation. I have not seen that yet. What's the best way for people to keep up with what you're doing? Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, anything you're comfortable sharing, I will round up.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not the biggest I'm not the biggest social media guy actually, but I have a private Instagram you can hit me up on under my name, and then there's like a Water Voices Productions, which is my production company Instagram. Hit me up. I need to be more active on that. And watervoicesproductions.com, just like that's me. Just like hit me up on there too. I update that with what's going on. Next year I am directing a horror film that I didn't write. That's beautiful, brilliant script that I can't wait to talk about soon. And Heavy Ashes, which I co-wrote with my friend Frederick, that we're going into production sometime next year as well too, which is more of a thriller. Gotcha. So yeah, and I'll update all that stuff there too. So
okay, perfect. Well, Todd, I really appreciate you coming on and talking with me today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, good luck with all your future projects, and I love to follow your career. So you're always welcome back when you get some of these other projects done.
Yeah, and thank you for everything you do for the community and screenwriters. I literally have learned so much from your podcast, and it's an honor to have you chat back with me. So
yeah. So thank you.
I really appreciate
that. So well, thank you. You take it easy.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
A quick plug for the SYS Screenwriting Analysis Service. It's a really economical way to get a high-quality professional evaluation on your screenplay. When you buy our 3-pack, you get evaluations at just $67 per script for feature films and just $55 for teleplays. All the readers have professional experience reading for studios, production companies, contests, and agencies. You can read a short bio on each reader on our website, and you can pick the reader who you think is the best fit for your script. Turnaround time is usually just a few days, but rarely more than a week. The readers will evaluate your script on 6 key factors: concept, character, structure, marketability, tone, and overall craft, which includes formatting, spelling, and grammar. Every script will get a grade of pass, consider, or recommend, which should help you roughly understand where your script might rank if you were to submit it to a production company or agency. We can provide an analysis on features or television scripts. We also do proofreading without any analysis. We will also look at a treatment or outline and give you the same analysis on it. So if you're looking to vet some of your project ideas, this is a great way to do it. We will also write your logline and synopsis for you. You can add this logline and synopsis writing service to an analysis, or you can simply purchase this service as a standalone product. As a bonus, if your screenplay gets a recommend or a consider from one of our readers, you get to list the screenplay in the SYS Select database, which is a database for producers to find screenplays and a big part of our SYS Select program. Producers are in the database searching for material on a daily basis, so it's another great way to get your material in front of them. As a further bonus, if your script gets a recommend from one of our readers, your screenplay will get included in our monthly Best Of newsletter. Each month we send out a newsletter that highlights the best screenplays that have come through our script analysis service. This is a monthly newsletter that goes out to our list of over 400 producers who are actively looking for material. So again, this is another great way to get your material out there. So if you want a professional evaluation of your screenplay at a very reasonable price, check out www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/consultants. Again, that's sellingyourscreenplay.com/consultants. On the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing writer-director Warren Fast. He just did a cool 80s throwback thriller film called Roadkill. We talked through his career. His first film was actually completely in the opposite direction of this one. It was a family-friendly, faith-based film. So we talk about all of that, how he got this first film off the ground, and then ultimately how that film led to now his second film. He was originally in law enforcement, started writing and acting and doing some short films, and now he has these 2 feature films under his belt. So another great, inspiring story next week. So keep an eye out for that episode. That's the show. Thank you for listening.